Hello there, welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly and tonight I have a playful two-page layout for you here that features large embellishments and the Gnomes for Spring collection. I reviewed the full Gnomes for Spring product bundle shown here on last week's video, and I will link all of that in the description. I also reviewed all of the bits and pieces that I created and how I created those that are part of the Junk Gypsy tray. So all of the pieces that we used on last week's layout and we're going to use on all the future layouts in this series are still in the tray, whatever we didn't use last week. So we still have some adorable standalone gnomes that we created, and again I went into great detail on how those were created in the video that's linked in the description. We have lots of Stampin' Thin Cuts left, and I have reviewed on the previous video how those were colored and the exact marker colors that I used, but I'll link that product list in the description as well. We're going to use this cute little rainbow tonight, and then we have some additional Cricut cuts that we also created for future layouts in this series, but the rainbow is what I'm going to focus on tonight, as well as some of those stamps and thin cuts, and then some stickers from the sticker sheet that are here in the tray. We have some honey bunny dots in the tray and some pink acrylic shapes as well. So here's last week's layout that featured the adorable picket fence, some Cricut flowers here, as well as some of those standalone gnomes. So we used one gnome in whole and then another gnome peeking out over the top of the photo, and it was so cute. We did a little doodling on those below those butterflies, little butterfly trails, and then we used some of the Stampin' Thin Cuts there across the bottom. So tonight, continuing on the series, we're going to use two 12 by 12 gutted frames with the cloud pattern by cutting from 1 inch to 11 inches, 1 inch to 11 inches, and rotating 1 inch to 11 inches all the way around so that we can conserve the middle paper. So we're going to use those frames as a background, and I'm envisioning this rainbow at the top and in the middle of the left page, and then maybe having some coordinating papers going across. I'd like to use a 4x4 photo and a 3x4 photo on the left page, and then maybe on the right page use 3 photos going vertically. Now I don't have photos for these because, as I explained on my previous video, I want to use our Easter photos and some spring photos with that, and we're actually buried under snow right now. So I want to wait till we have some prettier spring photos to use on these layouts. It's going to be so adorable. So we're going to use a glacier piece on the true side of glacier that's 10.5 by 10.5. We're going to duplicate that on the right page. We're going to use a 10.25 by 10.25 limeade. So we're just going to do some layering here, and then we're going to use a 10 by 10 white daisy, and we're going to repeat those layers for the base of the right page. So just some classic traditional layering on the back. But we're going to do a little bit of treatment on those pages. So we're just going to duplicate the right page and keep it simple. This is not going to be a hard one tonight. Most of the heavy lifting was in the previous video, making all the bits and assembling all the bits. This will be the easy part. We're going to do a little bit of inking. We're going to pull in our Swiss dot embossing folder and stencil. We're actually not going to use the embossing folder. We're going to use the stencil on this layout, and we're just going to add a fun background, and we're going to use a blending brush with some glacier ink on the background that's going to make a really pretty hue around the rainbow. We're going to do a little bit more on some corners and some bits and pieces that are going to show on the right page as well. I think that's going to be really playful around the rainbow. And we have that little Swiss dot folder that is a new item in our current idea book. But first I want to work on some playful and colorful pieces that are going to coordinate with the rainbow. So we're going to use the vertical stripe, and that is 3 by 10, and then we're going to use a portion of the crisscross limeade zip strip here that's going to be 1/2 by 10. And we're going to put that on the center, and then we're going to arrange that rainbow. So we're actually going to put that approximately, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 inches down. We're going to start that 1/2 inch strip, and then we'll arrange the photos on there. But I want to do a little bit to offset those photos and make those photos pop. So I'm thinking about using a little crisscross piece of that really cute crisscross pattern as a photo mat. And I'm actually going to lay those pieces in place without putting them down yet. And I'm going to draw a few little lines around the rainbow so I know how to make the treatments in the back, where the treatments in the back are going to go. So I've drawn those lines, and I'm going to use a blending brush and the Swiss dot stencil. And I'm actually going to just use that on a piece of scrap paper first. And I just want to try it out to see if that's the color that I want to use. So we have some choices. We have Glacier, we have Flamingo, we have Honey Butter, and we have Limeade. And I think any one of those colors would look really cute in the background. So this would be a spot where it would be handy to know what your photos are, because if there's colors in the photo that lend itself more to one or the other of these colors, then you could choose that photo. I do end up going with Glacier, but if you have some green hues in your photos, you could go with Limeade. If you have some Honey Butter hues in your photos, you could go with Honey Butter. And if you have any pinks in your photos, you could definitely go with Flamingo, and any of one of those colors would look great. So I'm just going to kind of match it up, use a little bit of these colors on my scrap paper, and then I'm going to match it up with the rainbow. It's a great thing to do, to just go ahead and do that off to the side before you do it on your background page, to be able to know that that's truly the direction that you want to go. So I'm just doing that, and then I'll kind of experiment here and see which direction I want to go. We're going to do some ink rubbing over the top of the stenciling, but now you can see I'm just kind of laying it there and seeing if I want it to be tone on tone. So if we have the Glacier on the top, do I want the Glacier hue, or do I want a contrasting hue with the Limeade, the Honey Butter, or the Flamingo? And I go back and forth here, and I honestly think it's 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. It's a complete personal preference, because honestly, every single color matches. And I'm fussing around here trying to make my final decision. And I do really like the Flamingo. It's such a cool contrast. But then I end up going with the Glacier. And I just kind of like that the rainbow ends in Glacier. And then there's a really cute Glacier hue up at the top. I love that. So what I've done then is I did that inking all the way around where the rainbow is. I did a little bit over on the right and then on the lower left. On the right page, I kind of went over on the top middle where those pieces are going to be mounted, and then a little bit on the lower left of the right page, and not very much of it's going to show, just a tiny bit's going to show in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and place those pieces again. About 4 inches down from the top is the 1/2 inch by 10 inch zip strip, and so that helps you get centered there. And then I will post those pieces. And actually, it looks like I might have skipped forward in the video just a little bit. So on the left-hand side, I do have a crisscross pattern paper piece that is approximately, let me measure that for you, 4 1/4 by 7 1/2 is the yellow crisscross photo mat. And then the Honey Butter pieces are 3 by 3 1/2. And we're going to do a little bit of white gel pen on those. And then over on the right page, the photo mat is going to be 4 1/4 by 9 1/2 Honey Butter. So you can see that I'm actually doing the stenciling in the lower left also. Not very much of that is going going to show at all. And then over the top of the stenciling on the upper right of the right page, the lower left of the right page, and the around the rainbow, I just rubbed a little bit more glacier ink. So I actually was trying to bring that crisscross yellow pattern into the right page somehow, since I have it as a photo mat on the left page, and I struggle with where to put it. I actually end up just making a strip of that, and it is a 1/2-inch strip, and it won't go all the way down. I think I actually made it about 9 inches long, but it actually will only need to be about 5 inches long because the gnomes are going to be covering it up. So I'll show that here in a little bit. I just kind of want a tiny bit of that yellow crisscross pattern to break up the stripe a little bit. And I'm sort of going to leave it lay there and see what I think. And then I'm going to mess around with some of our fun bits in the Junk Gypsy tray. So this is part 2 of a 5-part gnome series, like I mentioned earlier. And at the end of the gnome series, I will have a cheat sheet for those of you that want a little bit more support. I'll have an option where you can follow the link and click on the cheat sheet and get a cheat sheet that would have some full color photos and some cutting instructions and some measurements. And then you can actually follow the video for the visual. And so you can just grab the product, or if you already have the product, you can just follow along with each of my videos in the series. And if it's easy for you to do that, you can jump right in. But if you need a tiny bit more support, I'll have a cheat sheet available. It's kind of nice to know how to cut all your paper at once, so you end up with enough paper for all 10 layouts in this series. So now I'm just experimenting a little bit here with some title options. I do know that I want 2 of the gnomes over on the right. I think the rainbow on the left is enough. Less is more. I don't think we need more gnomes over on the left. I love Partly Sunny with a Chance of Fun. I think that's adorable, but I'm not quite sure I want the lemonade with the honey butter. I'm thinking I want maybe something that contrasts a little bit. I do end up settling on the lemonade hat and the glacier hat, but I do flip-flop around and I try all the colors. Again, if you have your photos chosen, you can choose gnome hats that sort of coordinate with your colors, but I'm experimenting here to see if I really am bothered by the honey butter title against the lemonade hat or the pink hat, and I'm messing around with this a lot, just seeing what I think here. So we'll just see what I land on. These are so playful and so fun, and I really want to use my Easter photos and my spring photos for these layouts. And we just got a snowstorm, and we just got buried in snow. I actually got back from the Close to My Heart home office and the Stampin' Up home office from a founder event this weekend where we said our farewells to Close to My Heart. So it was very, very bittersweet. We learned lots of things about Stampin' Up and an offer that Stampin' Up has for Close to My Heart makers to be able to continue our paper crafting after Close to My Heart closes at the end of April. And I came home, the first 2 hours out of Salt Lake City, Utah were a blizzard, or, a kind of rough weather. And then the last 2 hours getting home here in South Dakota were in a blizzard. And so crazy. So we're almost to Easter, and here we are covered with the snow. It's not unusual for us to be covered with snow this time of year. So here I am. I have finally settled on the gnome with the glacier hat and the pink flamingo umbrella, and the gnome with the lemonade hat. And I don't think that the gnome with the lemonade hat will show very much. I'd like a little bit of her ponytail to show, and a little bit of her nose to show, and a little bit of her hat to show. And then I'd like her to be sheltered a little bit by her friend, the gnome with the glacier hat. Now I'm struggling with how to do some color balance and have some of that crisscross pattern over here on the right page, since I have it over on the left. And I do decide on 1/2 by 9 inches of that. and then actually only about 1/2 by 5 inches will end up showing if you'd like to be a little chintzier with your paper and not use very much. So I'm going to cut a strip of that off, and then I'll use that right on the side. And again, that is 1/2 by 9 inches. And only about 5 inches of that will show, and that satisfies my need for the color balance. So I feel like I have just a tiny bit of that carried over to the right page. This is such a simple base layout. I'm just fussing with the bits a little bit because that's my thing and that's what I love to do. I hope you're loving our gnomes. I'm so happy that we have our little gnomes for spring. If you haven't checked them out already, we did have gnomes for autumn and gnomes for winter, and I'll link some of those videos. I did a video series, full series with gnomes for autumn and a full series with gnomes for winter. Gnomes for autumn, I believe, was 10 or 12 pages in the full series. And then Gnomes for Winter was 7 pages because I was the guest designer for Close to My Heart for that, and I had to limit that to 7 pages. Now I'm happy. It's looking so cute over there. It's looking so cute with the rainbow. I feel like I've got a balance where your eye goes from the rainbow to the left, down to the lower right, and across all of the photos. But I think we can use some Stampin' Thin Cut pieces here to do a little bit of embellishing and kind of pull in that spring theme a little bit more. So cute. You could do quite a few things around the rainbow. You could take a journaling pen and make some little doodle lines around the clouds. That would be really cute. I love these kites. And again, I did all the coloring on the previous video, and I shared all of the marker colors and how I did that on the previous video, but I will link the markers used in the product description on this video as well. I like the idea of having maybe a row of three piece flower bits of 3 flower thin cuts, and maybe having one of the 3 rows of flowers that's flush, and then on either end, and then maybe pop up with foam tape a row of flowers in the middle, and then maybe adding that cute little snail somehow. I love that little snail. And then maybe pulling in a watering can and some more flowers, or a watering can and some snails over on the right. So now it kind of draws your eye from the rainbow and the clouds down to the lower right of the left page to the flowers, back up to those gnomes and that title. I love the idea of adding butterflies to the treatments that we did on the back of the white daisy, and then maybe adding some acrylic butterflies as well and having a little bit of dimension. So cute. It's so playful and so fun, and I'm so ready for spring. I can't wait for spring. So I'm excited for some green grass and some flowers. It's going to be a while. I did hear our temperatures are going to go back up, but we keep going up to like 30, 40, 50, down to 0 again, back up to 40, 50, 60, back down to 0 again. And our wind chill, I think, went even below 0 this past week. So I'm ready for spring. So here I'm thinking about adding that little watering can just to help round out that title a little bit. Her hair is sticking out on the right, and it kind of helps your eye curve around that title without covering up the title. I like that. And I like the idea of that little snail down there and having some cute little butterflies at the top. Kind of less is more. I kind of like maybe a rule of 3 butterflies. So we have a little butterfly that we can put on the left-hand side of the photos, and then a little cluster of 2 butterflies on the right. And I think we could add some little words or some little icons here to jazz that up a little bit and add a little more interest. Less is more. So I think if we add the little sweet icon there and maybe add the little round heart sticker, that will be just enough to add a little element of fun. I do kind of like the idea of maybe adding another word over to the left-hand side. So we have this yellow full of life sticker from the sticker sheet, and then maybe we can zhuzh it up a little bit with some of those flamingo acrylic shapes. So we have flamingo butterflies and flamingo flowers, and I think those will be super cute. I love our acrylic shapes. You know, they really perfected our laser and they've made our acrylic shapes so much thinner, and I really love that added dimension. So I'm going to put one row of flowers flush, and then I'm going to put another row of flowers flush, and then I'm going to add the foam tape on the back. And then we have a little bit of white gel pen that we can add to the edges of the honey butter cardstock to just give that another added element, where we can add some dashed lines on the honey butter cardstock on the left, on the lower left of the photo mats. I kind of love that little offset vibe. Even though the yellow crisscross pattern photo mat doesn't show that much, I like adding that honey butter on each corner to offset those photos. It doesn't all have to be just adding a base to a base to a base. You can offset it a little bit, and I really like that look. Now I like the idea of adding a little bit of foam tape to those kites. So I think I'm going to have one kite popped up and one kite that's flush, just to add that little dimension to our eye there. And then maybe add some acrylic butterflies or something in there that are flying up there with the kites. I think it'll be just enough, but not too much. So I'm adding just a little bit of adhesive. You could use some heavy duty like score tape in the center. So even though it will probably get flattened a bit in the page protector, I still like to add just the adhesive to the center and pop those butterflies up just a little bit to add a little bit of extra dimension there. And then I can also add a little bit of dimension and or foam tape to the butterfly on the left-hand side. It's coming together. I'm liking it. I'm not totally getting happy yet, but I am getting happier. So I think I'm loving that cute little duo on the bottom. It looks like trouble. That would be probably really cute with a couple of my grandkids, you know, looking for Easter eggs, or maybe playing at Easter, or maybe just some spring photos. I am going to go with a friend and we're going to tour some gardens. So that might be a good one for this as well, or just some of our colorful Easter photos might be good as well. It could just be generic spring. It could be girlfriend. It could be partners in crime. I kind of think about those two little mischievous gnomes in the lower right corner kind of being partners in crime. So it could be a couple kids, a couple grandkids. It could be you and your girlfriend getting into trouble or just having some good spring fun. So I did pull in some Honey Bunny dots. Not necessary. You could totally grab some dots from your stash, but I kind of liked the idea of perhaps adding the dots just to the flowers. So the little flowers on the gnome have kind of a little embossed circle that is has more detail on it, and it just feels like to me that something needs to sit in the middle. So I added dots just to the flowers. So I did a glacier dot to the yellow flower, lemonade flower, and then I did a honey butter dot to the flamingo flower, just enough. Not too much. So now I'm adding some of those acrylic butterflies, and I will take my black lip pen and add some little butterfly trails to that, and then add a couple little flower gems, and I think that will make me happy. I'm going to actually probably just maybe limit it to maybe one over there on the left and maybe one on the right. I'm not sure. Just kind of however it makes you feel happy, you know, just enough. So I hope you are loving layout number 2 in the Gnomes for Spring series. Make sure that you hit like, subscribe, and the notifications bell so you catch the 3rd video in the series, where we'll be doing another 2-page layout. So be sure to shoot me a comment and let me know your thoughts. I'm loving the little spring gnomes. Are you? I sure hope so. I hope that you will tune in and check out the other videos in the series, and that you will have fun and play along. We do still, as of now, even though things have been just flying out, flying off the shelves with Close to My Heart since announcing the closure, we do actually still have some Gnomes for Spring that are still available if you want to check those out. Thank you so much for watching, and letting me share the love of paper crafting with you. Tune in next, actually probably the end of the weekend, for the third video in the series, the Gnomes for Spring series. Happy scrapping, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.